Number 8. Adam Simji. In mid-August of 2022, University of Central Florida student Adam Simji and his girlfriend, Michaela Paulus, were driving through the Talladega National Forest in Alabama. The couple, both in their early 20s, were waved down on a winding country road by a stranded female motorist in apparent need of assistance. The woman, later identified as Yasmin Hyder, and a female friend, asked if they could help restart her car. Hyder then brandished a firearm, robbed the couple, and forced them to walk into the woods at gunpoint. In the moments that followed, Simji produced his own handgun, and a shootout ensued between him and Hyder, in which both suffered injuries. Paulus briefly exchanged words with Hyder's companion, who'd sat by and watched the gunfight. The woman, whom the authorities named as Crystal Pinkins, fled, but not before Paulus was able to grab her phone and call 911. She then started performing CPR on Simji, who unfortunately succumbed to his injuries. Hyder was found lying next to the couple by the first responders and taken to a local hospital for emergency surgery. She survived and was subsequently charged with murder, kidnapping, and robbery in the shooting's immediate aftermath. Law enforcement learned that she had been living in a camp in the woods with Pinkins. When the police went to arrest the latter, her 5-year-old son emerged with a loaded shotgun. The child didn't fire, and his mother was taken into custody on the same charges as Hyder, with an additional charge of child endangerment. Number 7. Christian Glass. At 11:20 p.m. on June the 10th of 2022, Christian Glass called 911 after getting his vehicle stuck on a country road in Clear Creek County, Colorado. There was indication that Glass was in mental distress at the time, as he'd told the operator he was worried about skinwalkers and that he'd be harmed if he got out of the car. He also claimed that he wasn't dangerous and that he had a rubber mallet, a hammer, and 2 knives in his car, which were connected to his interest in geology. Deputies were sent to his location, and what followed was recorded on body cams. Upon the arrival of law enforcement, 22-year-old Glass refused to leave the vehicle, telling an officer who'd approached him with his weapon drawn that he was terrified and that remaining inside was the only way in which he could be safe. He offered to throw the knives and his other tools out of the car, but Clear County Deputy Andrew Buin told him not to. Over the course of roughly 70 minutes, the authorities tried to convince him to get out as officers from 5 different services arrived at the scene, including the Colorado State Patrol and police from Idaho Springs and Georgetown. Glass refused to exit and was seen making hearts with his hands and blowing kisses as an officer, but also praying out loud that they wouldn't break his car window. After more than an hour, law enforcement decided it was time to move the night on, and the deputy broke a passenger window while Buin stood on the car's hood in a panic. Glass, who'd kept his hands visible up to that point, grabbed a knife. Law enforcement told him to drop it. They then shot beanbags inside the vehicle, which caused the young man to violently thrash around. He was also shot with a taser twice by 2 different officers. Glass was heard repeatedly shouting out, "Lord, hear me," and an officer was recorded saying, "You can still save yourself." Glass turned to an officer with the small knife in hand and then appeared to stab himself before dropping it. Moments later, Buin, who was still standing on the hood, shot him at least 5 times, hitting his lungs, liver, and spine. Glass was pulled from the vehicle and pronounced dead at the scene. The body cam footage never showed him moving from the driver's seat, but the official reason for the shooting was that he'd tried to stab an officer through an open window. Buin returned to work within days. Glass's family called his death a murder by a Colorado official, and as of September 2022 was looking to take legal action against the department. Number 6. Christopher Telford. UK man Christopher Telford was driving towards Lancaster, England in the summer of 2016, while also testing out a new head-mounted camera. At some point, Telford suddenly saw a blue BMW heading straight towards him after the driver had mistimed an uphill overtake. In order to avoid a collision, Telford pulled a hard left, only to make contact with a dry stone wall bordering the country road. The impact sent his Toyota Yaris spinning before it came to a stop on its side, in the middle of the road. The entire accident was captured on Telford's camera. His airbags didn't deploy, and he'd held onto the wheel throughout, but remarkably walked away from the incident without major injuries. He did, however, suffer whiplash, muscle pains, a badly strained arm, and a cut elbow. Telford later reported that the BMW driver got out and apologized, noting that there was no road rage between them. Telford added that bouncing off the stone wall was the best outcome, since a head-on collision at a combined speed of 110 miles per hour would have likely resulted in both of their deaths. Number 5. Kevin Knowles and Benjamin Ray. While traveling through Kirkstall, northwest of Warrnambool, Australia, 2 men were gunned down on a country road on July the 22nd of 2022. One of the victims, 49-year-old Kevin Knowles, also known by the surname Doherty, had been feuding with another man, Travis Cashmore, aged 45. Knowles had a criminal record that reportedly spanned 50 pages. He was feared in the wider Warrnambool community, where multiple sources described him as a violent thug. Knowles had been jailed earlier in 2022 for threatening to kill a friend of Cashmore's and his family. Knowles allegedly breached the intervention order that the man had taken out against him, and Cashmore, defending his friend, went to the Koroit police station. When informed that his friend would have to come down to the station himself and file a complaint against his alleged tormentor, Cashmore told an officer, "Leave your gun on the counter and I'll take care of him." 2 days later, while traveling around in his white van, he ambushed Knowles and his 50-year-old associate, Benjamin Ray, on a country road a few miles from his Kirkstall home. He shot Knowles in the back of the head with a sawn-off shotgun before he ran down Ray and killed him as well. The latter was subsequently reported to have only been a recent associate of Knowles's and simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. Roughly 16 minutes after the double murder, Cashmore returned to his home and turned the shotgun on himself. His parents found his lifeless body a few hours later at the back of the property. In the days that followed, a sign was nailed to the home's front gate that read, "Trav, you and the Kirkstall community are now free from Kevin Knowles. R.I.P." Number 4. Accident at Chambers Flat. In August of 2021, an unnamed driver was involved in a horrific accident on a country road at Chambers Flat, about 40 minutes south of Brisbane, Australia. As indicated by harrowing dashcam footage, the driver of a large truck had entered a curve at speed, which sent the vehicle's trailer drifting into the path of oncoming traffic. The cabin closely passed the much smaller car, which then crashed into the trailer, sustaining considerable damage to its front. The force of the impact snapped all the bolts from the passenger chair and sent it flying into a baby seat in the back. Fortunately, there were no children in the car at the time. The driver suffered at least 7 fractures to their back and neck, but subsequent developments indicated they were recovering well. An investigation was subsequently launched to determine if the truck driver was speeding in the area where the imposed limit was below 40 miles per hour. As footage of the crash went viral, many users were critical of the truck driver, with one commenter sarcastically comparing his actions to a real-life version of Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Number 3. Jamie Edwards and Jolene Joyce. In November of 2014, Jamie Edwards and Jolene Joyce, both aged 36, were found dead on a country road in Moma, a town that sits on the border between the Australian states of New South Wales and Victoria. The couple were engaged to be married at the time of their death. Within days of the bodies being discovered on November the 14th, local police arrested 21-year-old Daniel Poynton, who later admitted to have been responsible for the double homicide. He'd met with Edwards on a secluded country road to purchase the drug ice and a gun from him. They were longtime friends and associates in a drug supply operation, but their relationship had recently become strained. They'd each received death threats following a drug robbery in Victoria. Poynton arrived at the meetup on a trail bike and with a concealed shotgun, reportedly fearing that Edwards was planning to kill him. By his own admission, the younger man was drug-affected and paranoid at the time. He walked up to Edwards on the driver's side of his Toyota Camry and said, "Hey, bud," before fatally shooting him through the window while he still had his seat belt fastened. Joyce, a passenger in the car, tried to flee after arming herself with a hunting knife. The mother of 4 kept running even after Poynton shot her in the upper body, but eventually turned and lunged at him with the knife. The man struck her in the side of the head with the shotgun, then reloaded and shot her again, killing her. He ultimately pleaded guilty to the double homicide in court and was sentenced to 24 years and 9 months in prison. Today's topic was requested by Rara36. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Dylan Price. A day before turning 18 in September of 2021, a promising rugby player suffered fatal injuries in a hit and run that took place near Bishop's Castle in Shropshire, England. The teenager had last been seen leaving a house party in the early morning hours of September the 19th. His body was found in Brampton Road by a relief dairy farmer, who then called the emergency services shortly after 5 a.m. As reported by a pathologist, the fatal injuries that Price had sustained after being run over were consistent with him lying down on the country road when the collision took place. His death would have been very quick due to massive head trauma. A toxicology report found Price's blood alcohol levels to have been twice over the drink-drive limit at the time, and the presence of a small amount of cocaine in his system was also noted. On September the 1st of 2022, almost a year from the accident, law enforcement announced that they'd arrested a man in his 50s on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving, but his identity wasn't disclosed. Number 1. Damien and Miles Sanderson. Two brothers, both in their early 30s, went on a stabbing spree in early September of 2022 in what was reported as one of the deadliest mass killings in the history of Canada. Damien and Miles Sanderson knifed at least 25 people in the indigenous reserve of James Smith Cree Nation and in the nearby village of Weldon, northeast of the city of Saskatoon. The attacks occurred at 13 different locations, including rural roads, with the authorities reporting that some were targeted while others were random. A motive for the spree wasn't fully disclosed, but the chief of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations suspected it to have been drug-related. The Sanderson brothers preyed on their victims while driving around in a black Nissan Rogue SUV, and 10 of the people they stabbed succumbed to their injuries, all but one of whom were part of the indigenous nation. Questions lingered about the horrific mass killing and its motives, as both brothers died within days of each other while fleeing the authorities. Damien was found dead in heavily grassed area on September the 5th, the day after the stabbings. His injuries didn't appear to be self-inflicted, and his brother was considered a suspect in the killing. Miles was on the run for 2 more days until a break-in and entering was reported near the town of Wacour, roughly 60 miles south of the James Smith Cree Nation. He was standing outside of a home armed with a knife, but left the homeowner uninjured and only stole their white Chevrolet truck. An emergency alert had been issued to the public, and in less than an hour, the police received over 20 calls that reported sightings of the stolen truck. After a brief chase on Highway 11, during which speeds of up to 100 miles per hour were reached, they forced Miles off the road and into a ditch. Soon after being taken into custody, he went into unspecified medical distress and was later pronounced dead in a local hospital. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get stranded on a creepy road in the woods or drive a Lamborghini through the most dangerous neighborhood in your city? Let us know in the comments section below.